Hello, Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Adab, Vanakkam. It is June the 12th and I am Jagjit bringing you the 49th episode of Weekly Takes from New York. And it is 21 degrees Celsius today morning and we are outside open in the nature. In this episode, we'll combine the news of USA and international news together in one segment and discuss the origins of coronavirus and the debate around it. Was it natural or man-made? We'll find out. Then we move over to our segment of some little known but unknown facts about New York. From there, we travel to India and find out as to what is happening on the social media platforms. We'll together have a look at it. We'll find out and also discuss the important political happenings of the past week. And then we move to the history of Kashmir, the heaven on earth. And finally, last but not the least, we'll talk about the happenings within the Congress party. And it's talk about what the so-called interim leadership is up to. Many of you have subscribed, but those of you who have not yet done so, please press the subscribe button and also the bell icon to get informed about the next episode at the earliest. The moment it becomes launched, you know of it. And I have a complaint. So many of you watch my programs, but only a handful of you press the like button. Please do press the like button because you do like the program and that's why you are here. Let's begin. News of USA and international news combined in one segment. Where and how did Corona start? In the public mind, the origin story of coronavirus seems well fixed. In the late 2019, someone at the now world-famous Hunan seafood market in Wuhan was infected with a virus from an animal. The rest is part of an awful history still in the making, with COVID-19 spreading from the first cluster in the capital of China's Hubei province to a pandemic that has killed over 3.8 million people worldwide and infected 375 million. And after over a year, lab leak theory is gaining credence. Let's examine it and try to find out the gory details. The first news reports about a potential lab accident in Wuhan as the cause of the outbreak were speculative at best. The Daily Mail appears to have been the first major Western publication to suggest the virus had a human origin. In an online story published January 23rd of last year, just a few weeks after Chinese officials disclosed the existence of a mysterious illness. The story was followed 3 days later by one in the Washington Times, which added a new twist that the facility, the Wuhan National Biosafety Laboratory, may have conducted bioweapons research in conjunction with the Chinese military. Both these stories energized widespread discussion of the lab leak theory on social media, which quickly became meshed with theories about bioweapons research. Within days, Facebook began warning users about spreading false or misleading information about the virus's origins. Nevertheless, the lab theory soon found an influential and mediagenic champion, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican, Arkansas, who suggested at a Senate hearing that the virus may have originated in a Wuhan super laboratory. NPR reported in April 2020 that there was virtually no chance that the coronavirus was released from a laboratory in China or anywhere else. The story largely faded from the mainstream media's radar as the pandemic's toll grew and the presidential campaign in the United States amped up over the second half of 2020. A kind of tidal change began early last month seemingly set in motion by two events. The first was a lengthy review of the known scientific evidence about the lab theory by Nicholas Wade, a veteran science correspondent formerly with the New York Times. Wade deemed the theory plausible and worthy of further investigation. He also excoriated Chinese officials, Western scientists, and the news media, accusing them of suppressing information or merely being uninterested in investigating further. Science magazine later published a letter from 18 scientists who called for an independent investigation. The Wall Street Journal, citing US intelligence information, reported on May 23rd this year that these researchers at the Wuhan Virology Lab had sought medical care in November 2019, a few weeks before officials disclosed the outbreak at the market. The United States' push for a new inquiry to determine the origins of the coronavirus, including whether it leaked from a Wuhan lab, raises a key question. What has China failed to disclose? Meanwhile, a new study conducted by the British professor Angus Dalgleish and Norwegian scientist Dr. Bergen Sorensen claims that the virus was created in a lab and has no credible natural ancestor. The Daily Mail cited the study and reported that the virus was created by Chinese scientists who were working on a gain-of-function project in the Wuhan lab. The research, according to the report, claims that scientists took a natural coronavirus backbone found in Chinese cave bats and spliced into a new spike, turning into a deadly COVID-19. The study claims that it found unique fingerprints in COVID-19 samples, which, according to them, could have only arisen because of manipulation in a lab. The group of 7 leaders are meeting this weekend and are set to call for a fresh, transparent WHO, the World Health Organization, convened study into the origins of this virus, according to a draft statement seen by Bloomberg News. Yet, so far, they have been vague on what exactly they want. But the world needs answers. After all, so many people have died. Meanwhile, former President Trump has asked China to pay US $10 trillion as reparations to America and the world for the death and destruction caused by the COVID-19. We may recall that when Trump was in power, he had called for a probe alleging that the virus had leaked from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology and even pulled out of the WHO, accusing the United Nations Health Agency of supporting Beijing. Was he correct, America? I leave it to your judgment. Now, moving to our segment of some little interesting, known but unknown facts about New York. Did you know that New York City takes up only about 304 square miles of the entire New York state? Sure, most of the population, more than 40% of the entire state, is centered in this small area. But that doesn't mean that's all there is to the state. New York, as a state, has so much more to offer than just city life and city attractions. Yes, New York City is attractive, but New York is home to some pretty stellar mountains as well. The Adirondack Mountains span more than 6 million acres, covering much of the northeastern part of the state. Unlike mountain ranges like the Rockies and the Appalachians, the Adirondack Mountains don't form a connected range. Instead, it is a white dome of more than 100 peaks, making new mountains from old rocks as a hot spot beneath the area causes peaks to continuously rise annually. Did you know that wine is very serious in New York. After all, it is the third largest wine producing state in America, following California and Washington state. But while many people look at Long Island in terms in New York wine production, one should be looking at Washingtonville. After all, this is where America's oldest continuously running winery, Brotherhood Winery, is located. Founded in 1839, it even sold medicinal wine during Prohibition so it could stay open and in business. I think I'll take a tour soon of the wineries nearby and share it with you folks. Just the pictures, not the wine. And did you know that you can stand in line anywhere in the world? However, if you are a New Yorker, especially from lower New York, you stand online. That's just how it is. Strange it may seem, but that is how it is. आइए अब चलते हैं भारत की ओर। पहले कुछ तथ्य। सोशल मीडिया पर तरह तरह की बातें देखने को मिलती हैं। A gist of it. As per latest polls, Modi continues to enjoy the trust of the people. The barrage of false criticism against him does not seem to have dented this trust, which is evident from the polls. Even though his rating has decreased, but number 2, the second one after him, is still very, very far behind. But the question remains, will he be able to provide people with relief from the economic troubles that have come out of the COVID-19 pandemic? At the moment, it seems that he will. The farmers have had increased income, even though the average income has not doubled yet, but the minimum support price has already been released for Kharif crops this year, which has brought smiles on the face of the farmers. And money going into their bank accounts directly, not via any media, is another big boon. Those in need have been provided with ration through the Pradhan Mantri Garib Ann Kalyan Yojana till Diwali, which means till November, supplying free food grains to 80 crore vulnerable people and health facilities, including free COVID vaccines to all above 18 years and basic banking facilities. Not a small task. The government is flush with funds. This will enable it to recruit more people and extend more services to the vulnerable people in general and the public in general. Tax collection is already looking up, and with the removal of tax loopholes, the income of the government has increased and more collection through GST is happening. The country has the highest ever foreign exchange reserves at $605 billion, being the fourth largest foreign reserves holder in the world. The only negative on the horizon is the tremendous efforts by the Congress ecosystem and the opposition parties, who are now relegated to just being regional political players, to demoralize everyone. Will they succeed? That is the question. What do you think, India? Let's take a look at the data collected by Morning Consult, an American data collection intelligence firm, through its political intelligence unit that provides real-time polling data on political elections. Let's examine the survey they undertook and reported over a period of time coinciding with major decisions or events. In August 2019, when the Modi government abrogated Article 370 for Jammu and Kashmir, his approval ratings stood at 82%, while disapproval ratings was just 11%. When the first wave of corona peaked on 17th of September 2020, on a day the country recorded 93,735 cases, the Prime Minister's approval rating was 74% and disapproval ratings 21%. The data further states that on 8th May this year, when India recorded its peak in the second wave with 3,91,263 cases on that particular day, Modi's approval ratings stood at 63%, the lowest since August 2019, from when political intelligence has been maintaining its popularity graph. What does this show? Despite India being the worst performing country, as claimed by many, during the second coronavirus wave and a vaccination drive that has met with one hurdle after another, whatever the cause may be, and has been severely criticized, Modi's net approval graph plus 33 stands well above that of other global leaders such as French President Emmanuel Macron minus 21, Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro minus 16, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson 6, and Canada's Justin Trudeau 0. So what do you say, India? Where is our Prime Minister and his popularity? आइए नजर डालते हैं पिछले हफ्ते के राजनीतिक समाचारों पर। इधर जितिन प्रसाद ने कांग्रेस पार्टी छोड़कर बीजेपी ज्वाइन किया, तो उधर मुकुल राय ने बीजेपी छोड़कर वापस टीएमसी ज्वाइन कर ली। एक समय था जब अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी, मुरली मनोहर जोशी और कलराज मिश्रा जैसे ब्राह्मण नेता उत्तर प्रदेश की कमान संभालते थे। इसके चलते बीजेपी संगठन और राज्य से केंद्र तक की सरकारों में ब्राह्मणों का सियासी वर्चस्व कायम था, लेकिन फिर यह धीरे धीरे कम हुआ। इसके बावजूद 2017 के चुनाव में ब्राह्मणों ने बीजेपी का जमकर समर्थन किया, क्योंकि वह सपा और बसपा से तंग आ चुके थे और उन्हें बीजेपी की सत्ता में वापसी की उम्मीद दिखती थी। हालांकि मौजूदा यूपी की बीजेपी सरकार में उन्हें वैसी तवज्जो नहीं मिली जैसा वे उम्मीद लगाए बैठे थे। जानकारों का कहना है कि जितिन प्रसाद को बीजेपी सिर्फ ब्राह्मण समुदाय को साधने के लिए पार्टी में लेकर आई। यूपी में बीजेपी कुछ दिनों से ब्राह्मण वोटों को लेकर संशय में है, जिसके चलते पार्टी तमाम जतन कर रही है। ज्ञात रहे कि बीजेपी भी यह बात जानती है कि जितिन ड्राइंग रूम की राजनीति करते रहे हैं और उनकी बहुत ज्यादा जन उपयोगिता नहीं है, लेकिन उनके नाम की उपयोगिता है, क्योंकि वे जितेंद्र प्रसाद के बेटे हैं। लेकिन ब्राह्मणों के बीच उनकी कितनी पैठ है? 0 बटा सन्नाटा। राजनीति में हमेशा से एसेट लाया जाता है, न कि लायबिलिटी। जितिन प्रसाद लायबिलिटी हैं जिनको ब्राह्मण समाज ब्राह्मण मानता ही नहीं है। ब्राह्मण समाज का कहना है कि जितिन प्रसाद के 4 पुश्तों में कोई रिश्तेदारी ब्राह्मण परिवार में नहीं हुई है, लेकिन वही ब्राह्मण समाज राहुल गांधी को कैसे ब्राह्मण मान लेता है? माय 2 सेंट्स, अगर किसी ब्राह्मण चेहरे को लाना था तो जमीन से जुड़े छात्र युवा आंदोलन के कांग्रेस के पुराने अग्रणी चेहरे को लाना था, जो धर्म और कर्म से ब्राह्मण हो, जो आंदोलन का पर्यायवाची हो। खैर, अभी वक्त बाकी है। आइए चलें वापस धरती के स्वर्ग कश्मीर की ओर। पिछले एपिसोड में हमने जाना सिकंदर बुत शिकन या सिकंदर मूर्ति भंजक के बारे में। हमने जाना कि सिकंदर बुत शिकन ने कैसे मंदिरों को जमींदोज किया और साथ में यह आदेश भी पारित किया कि जितने हिंदू कश्मीर घाटी में हैं, वे या तो धर्म परिवर्तन कर मुसलमान बन जाएं या घाटी से बाहर निकल जाएं। इसे अगर सच में देखा जाए तो उस समय से ही हिंदुओं को कश्मीर से निकालने की प्रक्रिया शुरू हो गई थी। चलिए इतिहास के पन्नों को आगे पलटते हैं और देखते हैं आगे की कहानी। सिकंदर बुतशिकन को मूर्ति भंजक कहा गया, पर उसका बेटा जैनालुद्दीन कहलाया मंदिरों और मूर्तियों का सबसे बड़ा संरक्षक। वह एक हरदिल अजीज, न्यायप्रिय, संवेदनशील, दूरदर्शी और बेहतरीन राजा साबित हुआ। गद्दी नशी होते ही इसने अपने पिता के हर आदेश को खारिज कर दिया। उसने हिंदुओं को वह सब कुछ करने दिया जो वह धर्म के मुताबिक करना चाहते थे। टीका लगाना, घंटा बजाना, शंख बजाना, मंदिरों में आरती होना, यहां तक कि जब उसके राज्य में डाकू पकड़े जाते थे तब उनको कोई भी कठोर दंड नहीं दिया जाता था, पर उन्हें मैनुअल लेबर की सजा दे दी जाती थी और मजदूरी भी दी जाती थी। अगर किसी गांव में डकैती हुई तो उस गांव के मुखिया को जिम्मेदार माना जाता था, क्योंकि उस समय यह मानना था कि मुखिया डाकुओं से मिले होते हैं। जैनालुद्दीन को उसकी जनता प्यार से बड़शाह यानी बड़ा राजा कहती थी। जब राजतरंगिणी द्वितीय जोना द्वारा लिखी गई तब उसमें इसके कार्यों का विस्तार से उल्लेख किया गया। जैनालुद्दीन का राज भी पंजाब और गांधार तक फैला हुआ था। यद्यपि वह कोई बहुत बड़ा योद्धा या युद्ध प्रेमी नहीं था, पर फिर भी इसे इसके महान कार्यों और उदारवादिता के कारण उसे कश्मीर का अकबर कहा जाने लगा। इसने अनेक स्थानों पर बांध, भवन और उद्यानों का निर्माण कराया। इसने गौ हत्या को पूरे तौर पर बंद करवा दिया और अपनी देखरेख में इसने हर निर्माण कार्य खुद करवाए। इस सब से इसकी लोकप्रियता और बढ़ती गई। जिन ब्राह्मणों को घाटी से इसके पिता ने निकाला था उसे इसने व्यक्तिगत रूप से वापस निमंत्रण देकर बुलवाया। ब्राह्मणों के वापस आते ही घाटी की शोभा और बढ़ गई और जैनालुद्दीन की लोकप्रियता में चार चांद लग गए। कश्मीर के अकबर कहे जाने वाले इस सुल्तान ने उनके पुनर्वास की समुचित व्यवस्था की। कल्पना से परे इसके राज्य में धार्मिक सौहार्द पनपा। कश्मीर के इतिहास के पन्नों से आज इतना ही। अब बात 135 साल पुरानी कांग्रेस पार्टी की, मेरी पार्टी की। Let us briefly see the history of the party since the 70s. Congress Party, which led India to freedom from the British colonial rule, was once the default party of government at home and a model for aspiring Democrats the world over. In 1975, however, confronting the prospect of judicial disqualification, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi of the Congress Party imposed emergency and became almost a dictator for 21 months. During and after this time, internal democracy within the Congress Party vanished completely. It can be said that the Gandhi dynasty, which seized total control of the Congress Party in the 1970s, converted it into a family fiefdom. Despite handing two historic electoral victories to the BJP in 2014 and 2019 parliamentary elections, Congress refuses to allow new leadership to rise. Pappu, the catastrophically inept scion of the Gandhi family, who lost his own seat in parliament from Amethi while leading his party to its second consecutive defeat, remains the de facto leader of the Congress Party. Sonia Gandhi, by becoming the interim president, keeps potential challengers to her heir at bay. And the only notable promotion within the party's ranks over the past 2 years was of Pappu's sibling, Pinky Priyanka Gandhi Vadra. Last year, when a group of 23 senior leaders of the Congress Party demanded reform within the party, its members were shouted down, invited to leave the party, and punished in petty ways. The party's working committee proceeded to pass a motion resolving to strengthen the Gandhis' control over the Congress Party in every possible way. pledging never to permit anyone other than the family to undermine or weaken their hold of the Congress party, and praised them for inspiring a generation of Indians. I do not know which Indians. This unchecked dynastic entitlement within the Congress party has worked marvelously to Modi's advantage. The next general election, the most consequential in India's history, is just 3 years away. Rather, 2 years away basically. And Congress remains the only organization that has pan-Indian presence and can rival the BJP's reach across India. But its ability to mobilize Indians and becoming a worthwhile opposition to a strengthened democracy is being fatally and totally undermined by its preoccupation with preserving dynastic despotism within the Congress party. And that is the root cause why leaders worth any mention who have grassroots support have either left the party or have been expelled or suspended for a number of years from the party. I am a congressman and as much a party worker than Pappu or Pinky, except that my last name is not a Gandhi. And that is why I raise my voice and try and awaken my friends to rise up to the occasion. Rise up for the country, because the country needs the Congress party and the Congress party needs a new management. My suggestion, raise the banner of new management at the state level to begin with, and can be safely initiated from Uttar Pradesh, which is to go to the elections in 2 years' time, where there are leaders who do have extensive people's support and grassroots activism. बदलाव का नारा है, कांग्रेस हमारा है। आज के लिए इतना ही। अगले एपिसोड में हम हमेशा की तरह चर्चा करेंगे अमेरिका के राजनीति की, विश्व के समाचार की, कश्मीर के इतिहास की, कांग्रेस पार्टी के कहानी की, कांग्रेस पार्टी के भविष्य की। क्या होगा देश की सबसे पुरानी पार्टी का? क्या उत्तर प्रदेश में कमान किसी नए नेता को सौंपा जाएगा? कौन हो सकता है ये नया नेता? जानेंगे भारत अमेरिका के बनते बिगड़ते रिश्तों के बारे में। कई और तथ्यों के साथ फिर आऊंगा और मिल बैठकर चर्चा करेंगे आपके अपने प्रोग्राम वीकली टेक्स फ्रॉम न्यूयॉर्क में। हाँ, अगर आपको प्रोग्राम अच्छा लगा तो लाइक करें, चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें ताकि अगले एपिसोड की सूचना आपको पहले मिल सके। तब तक के लिए जय हिंद, जय भारत।